So most of the people I coach who are stuck don't have a behavior problem. Okay, well they totally do, but most of them also have an identity problem. And here's the craziest part: most of them know it. Okay, so imagine that you're sitting with me. You're like an apparition though, like Ebenezer Scrooge. So the client can't see you. And let's say that there's this guy sitting across from me. Let's call him 45 years old, just totally hypothetically. He is his wife's rock. Okay. He takes and picks up the kids from all six of the sports and extracurricular activities. He's known as the guy that you can count on at work and at school, the one everybody calls when a fundraiser needs organizing, or like, man, the big sale, the big close needs to go through at work. And I would say that this guy that you and I are sitting across, his press release would say that he's very capable. Okay, you got a good picture? But you and I are looking at a human who isn't healthy. His sleep is crap. He does very little for himself. The temper at home has been growing for a while. But here's like the wildest part. He knows all this. There's no eureka moment that we had hoped for. He doesn't leave the session repenting for his evil ways and buying a big turkey for Bob Cratchit and his family. He knows he's unhealthy and doesn't seem to know how he can change the identity that likes to help others. Further, he's rewarded and successful for being this way in public. And it's what's punishing him in private. He knows it. His wife knows it. His kids probably know it. And still, change feels impossible. And I'm coming to you today because I think I know why. It's a bold thing to say. If we're talking about that big word identity with the client above, most of us treat our identity like this load-bearing wall during a very thorough remodel. We're convinced that if we touch that, good things will fall down. Not just the bad ones, the marriage will come down. Our success at work will come down. Our total sense of competence, the daily decision architecture, all of that. And so saying it that way, it feels a lot smarter if we don't touch that. So we renovate everywhere else. We hire the executive coach. We join BSF. We white knuckle the always executing persona for like one more year. And when that doesn't work, maybe we'll hire a more aggressive coach. And look, I'm here to say that I think the wall actually is load bearing. The identity actually did get us here. The fear that I'm describing is not dumb. And we've watched plenty of people reinvent themselves and lose their marriage, or the George Costanza haircut along the way. The misconception, though, is that demolition is the only option. And I think there is another way. I think it's older than self-help, and I think it's way quieter than renovation. Now, not far from here in Dallas, Texas, if you go to the Kimball Art Museum in Fort Worth and you national treasured the Caravaggio that's on the wall, it's a painting called The Card Sharps. And let's say that you stole that painting and you ran it under an X-ray. You would find an earlier composition underneath. There would be a hand that was in a different place that used to be raised and now it's not. Some of the figures in the painting would be turning away instead of turning forward. And the master, Caravaggio, he didn't throw the earlier iteration out and start with a brand new canvas. He painted on top of it. Now, the art world calls this pentimento. The earlier figure is still there. It's still doing structural work. It just isn't showing itself anymore. It got demoted. It got pulled back from the foreground to the substrate, which is like the base. Now, that's an option that I think is available to all of us. Versions of our identity that have served us well don't need to be thrown out. They just need to be demoted. And this thing I'm describing, it's not just a nice thought, it has a structure to it. Nietzsche gave us 3 images. The first is a camel. So you can imagine this process as a camel kneeling and asking to be loaded with everything. Duty, expectations, all that inherited rules that we learn. The whole thou shalt is laid across the camel's back. That's our guy in the consult room before. Now, the next image, the next stage is the lion. The lion roars to the dragon, which is the thou shalts, and it roars no to all of those rules. Now, the lion's interesting because all it's doing is rebelling, but it can't at this stage really determine what it wants instead. It just clears the space. The final image is of a child. Isn't that beautiful? The child plays. The child creates new images on top of the old ones. Maturity, if we could use that word, is returning to a simpler version of yourself. Now, not naive simplicity, but simplicity on the other side of complexity. The mature brain isn't the brain with the most connections. It's the brain that has cut most of them. There's a term for this. It's called synaptic pruning. Typically happens as people are graduating from adolescence, but it's where half of our wiring gets deleted. Identity maturity, you could say, then, is reductive and not additive. And this is the part of behavior change that not many people in fitness really want to deal with. It's much easier to coach fitness at the level of things to do. Sleep more, eat this, lift that. Not dismantle identity. We've just been trained to write programs. But that's why people change in the short term and they come back exactly who they were before. It's not a metaphor. Over 20 years, I've high-fived some of the same people multiple times who got in shape and then are right back in the same chair telling me the same story in like a slightly different costume. Now, the good news is that as coaches, it's not really in our purview. It's not really in our control to change our clients at that level, but we do want to encourage it because I'm convinced at this point in my career that change won't last without it. So if any of this is landing, here's a couple of sentence prompts on identity pentimento. First sentence. See if you can fill in the blanks for me. I have been running on the assumption that fill in the blank. I have been running on the assumption that my self-worth is totally connected to how hard I can work. I have been running on the assumption that if I drop the ball in this particular way, that it's going to have a devastating effect on whatever. That's sentence one. I have been running on the assumption that fill in the blank. Next sentence, that assumption has been protecting me from fill in the second blank. It's an interesting thought process, right? What has this assumption been protecting you from? What are you really scared about? Last sentence that you write out with a pen on your phone is I'm choosing to stop treating it as a fixed rule. Doesn't mean it's not a rule. It just means it's not a always rule. Now I got one more for you before we close. And this one's just a question. Who in your private life would notice first if you pentimentoed yourself, and what would they notice? Now, if you think about that and the answer is nobody, then the change you're looking for isn't structural. It's just cosmetic. Now, with those two answers in hand, let's come back to that wall. The wall that we thought if we did anything to, man, the whole roof was going to cave in. And what I've found, and what others have found, is that those sentences didn't knock the wall down. They just painted over it.